Hey y'all, it's Laura, and I wanted to give you a little peek at something I'm working on for this video. I have pulled out my scrapbookingstore.com kit for February, and it's very, very beautiful. Lots of reds and pinks. It's based on Authentique's romance collection, and I'm doing something really fun here. I've taken this beautiful wood grain, and I've got a cut file cut out on it. You may not be able to see it yet, but I'm going to use the outside border, the cut file itself, as well as the negative inside pieces on 3 different layouts. So let's get started to make the most use out of our cut files. So to get started, this is the outline of the cut file that I was showing you on my silhouette mat, and it is a free cut file that I got from Katie Kinnaman, who is the Cathartic Scrapper on Instagram, and I will link her blog post below that takes you straight to where the cut file is so you can get it for yourself. The reason I love this cut file and the reason I'm using it is because it is very similar in design to a wood veneer frame piece that came out quite a while back and that I couldn't get my hands on, and she said the same thing. She couldn't get her hands on it either, and so she made a cut file that was really similar in style, and I thought that was awesome, so I definitely wanted to give it a try for myself. Now I'm going to take this really cute photo that is of my husband and I at a restaurant that was one of our random and rare date nights. And we had gone into the restaurant, and when you walked into the foyer of the restaurant, there was this huge long-horned steer head. It was a steak restaurant, and I thought that that was ridiculous and hilarious and goofy looking, and it immediately made me think, I want to scrapbook that thing. So I convinced my husband to take a selfie with me in front of the steer head. Now it was really high up on the wall, and my husband and I are rather short. So we had to kind of stand at a weird angle, and it kind of cuts off our necks, but we were able to get our heads and the steer in the same picture. And I don't know why I find that hilarious, but I do. So I'm going to go ahead and back this cut file with a number of the papers from this collection. It is by Authentique, and Authentique is a vintage styled company, and I know several of you have asked me if I would do some vintage styled layouts so you can see my take on them, so I decided to do this one. I actually am going to make 3 layouts out of this kit, so you'll see 3 different ways to use vintage styled products to make. Some of them are still vintage styled at the end, but I know at least one of them has more of a contemporary flair. So I just wanted to give you some options of how I would use those products. Most commonly, I would use them to back cut files because when you use them in smaller amounts, the vintage impact isn't as strong and it can have a more modern feel. Another tip for using vintage products is to add mixed media, because mixed media will also update older products as well. Another idea for using vintage products is to mix it in with new product. And this kit absolutely did that. They brought in the new crepe paper La 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 Love ephemera pack and stickers and washi from Pebbles. So that definitely updated the kit, and you could mix those together to create a more modern, contemporary look with these vintage papers. I will say though that Authentique is great about a lot of their patterns are very simple, so you'll have a lot of like polka dots or stripes, and that's easy to use on any layout. It doesn't have to be vintage or otherwise. So that's kind of a neat thing too about that company. I am going to head and add in my photos into the cut file. I don't do this terribly often, but I really did like how this came out. Now that it's all filled in, I did consider taking some lace around the outside of the heart, which would have been my go-to, but if I was going to do that, I wanted to be able to fold it a little bit and kind of rouge it up a little bit, and I was being impatient this day and didn't really want to deal with that. So instead, I decided to use some doilies, and this was much faster, much easier, and it achieved pretty much the same look. And what I'm just doing is just taping it down to the back. I used one doily for the top two pieces of the heart, and then I used another doily, which I am going to cut down. I'm going to cut around the center circle so that I can get just the lace pieces off of there. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to cut it down further and make it straight. So by cutting that circle into sections, we lose the curvature, and I can more easily place it along the edge of the heart, which is straight. So that's a little tip if you're trying to do this at home. Was cutting it apart definitely made it easier, and then just adding some double-sided tape and fitting those pieces down the side of the heart. I really like what this added to the cut file. I felt like it gave it a little bit more of the vintage flair actually, but because this doily is very, very white, the background paper is very light cream, and a lot of the papers in between are cream, I think that it also gave it a little bit of depth because it wasn't the exact same color as what it was resting on, what the base was. And so it did kind of lift it up a little bit and make it look a little bit more dimensional than it actually was. And it's just that extra texture. That's what texture does, is it just gives it that appearance of dimension, even if you don't actually add dimensional adhesive to the heart itself. So I'm just going to fit those little pieces around. I ended up using the whole of those two doilies to go all the way around my heart. And then we're just going to do some minor embellishing and this layout will be done, because most of the work here was in fact filling that cut file, and that can be a rather tedious thing to do, but it's also a good project to do if you're watching YouTube, you're watching your favorite TV show, or you're just chatting with your kids, which I quite often am doing while backing cut files. So I've grabbed some pieces. We have the authentic part of the kit came with a punch out page of ephemera, so that's on the left side, and on the bottom right is the crepe paper La 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 Love collection. So I have ephemera on both sides that I'm going to be bringing in, but most of it's going to be coming from the authentic side because I want to keep that vintagey feel. And I wanted to make sure that the layouts that I was showing you not only have a contemporary look, but also the vintage look and how to make that work in your current photos. So I'm not going to do a lot of embellishing here. Most of what I'm going to add on are some small accents, like some hearts over here on the left side, and I will put in a tag on the right. And then I have my title, which is just that beautiful little banner piece. And that and some journaling will be about it. But at the end of this video, I am going to show you all three of the layouts that I made with this cut file. And I was really excited to get so much use out of this cut file. I thought about using 2 tags here, but it felt like a bit much. It kind of felt like I was trying just a hair too hard. And I also thought it kind of made the banner and the sentiment at the bottom connected, and I didn't love the way that that looked. So I will end up pulling it down to just the black tag because it balanced out the dark photos, created a bit of a visual triangle there with the dark photos. And so that one's gonna stand on its own with a gold heart from the La 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 Love collection, which I love, by the way. That collection is gorgeous. I don't do a lot of these lovey type of layouts, and because that's why I don't buy things like that are heavily themed, but it was really fun to play with, I will say that. I am going to add just a little bit of twine to this tag. Again, adding texture. It just makes it pop off the page just a little bit. Those little details really make your page feel more handmade. It makes it feel more interesting to look at. I think people have gotten so used to looking at printed images. You know, you see images on the internet all day, you see images in books, you see images in advertising, and they're so used to seeing flat printed images that when you look at a scrapbook layout, I always want it to have a feel of handmade, of texture, of dimension, because it really does capture your attention when there are levels, when there is actually something you can physically touch, and it's just so sensory. It just makes looking at a scrapbook such a sensory experience. And I don't think that a lot of us have that in our daily lives. We don't have that sensory experience when we're looking at photos, especially. And that's one of the reasons I love scrapbooking, is because it is so sensory. Although we do put everything into page protectors, so that does diminish the sensory experience just a little, but that's also why I really enjoy mini albums. So I'm going to flip through the ephemera, see if there's anything left I want to use. I found one photo corner that's kind of cute, had a little scalloped edge, and I was searching for the second one. And now that I found it, I'm going to go ahead and glue those on into two of the corners, which will complete the diagonal flow that I was trying to achieve. I do generally try to create some sort of diagonal flow on my layouts just because I think it carries the eye a little bit better. This one ends up being more of a triangle though, because I do have my journaling off to the right underneath of that tag. I just felt like if I added it to the left, it would just make the whole layout feel bottom heavy. So I added it to the right so that your eye bounces to the three areas on the layout. And using my journaling genie, this is a discontinued item, and if you are looking for it, I have seen versions of it on Amazon, but not this specific one, which is the basic journaling genie. I do really like it though for creating my journaling lines, and it just makes it quick and easy, and they're straight, and I know they're not going to be on a weird angle. So just adding my journaling about where we were going, what we were doing, and the date. So stay tuned to see all three of my layouts and some close-ups at the end. Thanks for joining me. Okay, I wanted to show you the three layouts that I made using that one cut file. This first one you saw me make on the video using the outline of the cut file. This one uses the inside pieces, and I've just recreated that heart shape and then done some chain stitching around the outside to create an outline. Added some modeling paste in the through a stencil for some more little hearts, add some texture, and then some splattering with black watercolor. And this last layout uses the negative shape of the wood grain paper, and then I've backed it with another piece of pattern paper, and then tucked in my photos and added little bits and pieces around my photos. So that's three layouts from one cut file. I hope this inspires you to try that out with your own cut files or die cuts. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye!